This video is looking at how we can investigate transformations on an x squared function using our graphics calculator. The graphics calculator is great to have a look at how changing different parts of our function can change the appearance of it. So I'm looking mainly at when we have our function in turning point form and adjusting different parts of that. So I'm going to start with my y equals x squared, and I like to, whenever I'm doing these kind of questions, I like to start with our basic form of the function and keep that as our first function, and then make the changes and see how that changes that function when we graph it. So I'm starting with my x squared to start with, and I want to set up my screen so I can see as much of that as possible. So when I'm looking at that, I want to adjust my window because I've got a lot of space in my negative part of my y-axis. I want to maybe bring that up to my standard negative 10, 10, so I can see that on the screen nicely. And there's my x squared, my basic quadratic shape. Now, when I make some changes to that, I can see how that changes my graph. So to start with, I'm just going to keep my x squared, so pressing that x button, my squared, and I'm going to put a plus there, and I'm going to pick a number to put in there. So I'm going to do a +3. Now, when I look at that, I can compare that to my turning point form, and that plus is coming over here. That's my plus k. Now, I know that this is going to cause a vertical shift in my function, and it's going to move it up 3. But when you're starting in quadratics, you may not know that that's going to happen. So doing this on your calculator and having a look at what happens is a great way to investigate that. Now, when I press graph, I'm going to see my blue lines there that I had first, and then I'm seeing that red line come in, and I can see that it is moving it up 3 places. So my turning point, instead of being at 0, 0, has moved up now to 0, 3. So that's my first change. I can also go back and have a look. Well, if that, when I put a plus in, it moves it up, then I should expect when I do a minus, it's going to move that down. So let's have a look at our graph. So our blue line is coming in, which is our x squared, and then we should be seeing that come down lower, as we have here, to -3. The next change we're going to look at is when we have a horizontal shift. So instead of putting it on the end there, I am going to take this off, and I'm going to put some brackets in here so that I have my x, and then I'm going to put in a change in there. So I'm going to put a -2 this time. So I've got x minus 2 squared, and I've got that in the brackets so that that is applied to my x. Now I know this is going to be a horizontal shift. I also know that when I have a minus, that's going to shift it to the right. When I have a positive number there, that's going to shift it to the left. So let's have a look at our graph. We should see that shift now to the right. Here it comes, and it has moved it 2 places to the right. I'm going to go back now, and instead of having a minus, I'm going to show you that change when you change it the other way. So if I have a plus, it's now going to move it to the left instead. And there we go. We can see that that turning point has shifted across 2 places to the left. The other thing I can investigate is what if I have a dilation, and that's where I have a number in front of my x squared. So I might go 2x squared and see what the effect of that is. So there's my original, and then my red line's going to come down there, and see how it's made the graph steeper because it is multiplying that y value times 2 of what it was originally. So following that process, if when I put a 2 in front, it makes it a skinnier graph. If I put a fraction, so I've got a 0.5 in front of my x squared, getting that into position. Might just clear all that and start again. So 0.5x squared, when I graph that, I'm going to expect it to be a shallower slope or a fatter graph. And here it comes down, and you can see that is a fatter graph. The other thing that we can also try is the effect of a negative. So putting a negative in front is going to reflect the graph. So it's going to reflect it in the x-axis, and so instead of being a what I call a smile, it's going to look like a frown. And there it is. So we can see how those features change. Now, a great thing to do, I always say, is try this out yourself. I always say to my students, I can show you how to do something, you can read how to do something, but until you do it yourself, you haven't mastered it. So grab out your calculators and have a go at graphing some functions.